Welcome to another episode of Unapologetically First Gen. I'm Leslie, the older sister.
And I'm Stacy, the younger sister.
So, we've had a couple of episodes where we talked a lot about growing pains, and we talked a lot about, kind of the sort of some of the difficult pieces of growing up and things that we didn't talk about. And, there were a lot of things where we were like, I don't know. I don't want to say like shitting on mom and dad, but it was hard. And like, I want to make sure that, or we wanted to make sure that we give them credit because they have changed a lot and they have grown a lot and things have really changed from a lot of that, like we don't talk about stuff. So today we wanted to talk about the parental glow up and talk about how they've changed over time.
Yes. And I think like something to talk about is like, I'm very grateful that they've changed and grown alongside with us. Like, I think, we were talking about this earlier and you mentioned like not everybody has that privilege, right, of their parents growing and changing with them. And so I think that's like part of why we want to do this episode is just like acknowledging like there's been a lot of like hard work happening, like not just with us to break cycles, but they've done a lot of work to break some of these cycles. And it's cool to see like now looking at the next generation and how what their relationship is with the grandkids and how everything is turning out. It's just very heartwarming.
It is. And it's just been, I think we've made this joke before where we're saying like, oh, I wish that, my parents were, my kids' grandparents. They're just so like warm and fuzzy right now. But even then, like the relationship that we have with them now is so different than the relationship that we had with them growing up, which, I think should be true for all adults. Like your relationship with your parents should evolve as you grow up. You really are like parented by these people as a kid, but then like as an adult, it's just a little bit different and you don't need the parenting so much anymore. But you need, I don't know, something different. I definitely still need mom. And especially when it comes to like me being a mom, if that makes any sense. It's just a very different relationship than even 10 years ago, which I'm still an adult, but in a different phase of my life.
Oh, yeah. And I think so much of the dynamics between me and mom and dad has been years of therapy and me learning how to be like, here are the boundaries that I'm setting and here's how I need to actually prioritize myself first so that I can be present in this relationship in a not resentful way. And I think that they have done a really good job of understanding that my needs have changed over time. You and I do a lot of like stuff for them when it comes to like appointments and bills and, all of this stuff. And, I remember I struggled a lot because I felt like I had to do things right away when they asked. And there was like some tension there. And they have really gotten so good about being like, hey, when you have a minute, can you help me with this? And getting rid of like that urgency and that anxiety because like that was making me anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really appreciate like the fact that they are working to like understand what are my boundaries and like really maintaining that relationship in like the best way that they know how.
You've done a really good job at establishing boundaries and saying like, this is what I'm comfortable with and this is what I'm not comfortable with. I've definitely had a harder time with it. So for a while, there was a lot of like, we need you to do this thing. We don't want to ask Stacy because then she gets mad at us. And then it was like, well, now I'm stuck doing all the things. And I think that there was a point where we all had to kind of figure out what is the way to do this, where they're getting the support that they need and not, and like, no, neither one of us is feeling ignored or overwhelmed.
It's funny too, 'cause to give an example, one of the things that you and I really pushed our mom to do was doctor's appointments on her own. And of course, there's been a few times where she's had to go to the emergency room. One of us always goes. But in terms of going to see your primary care provider and just doing those annual appointments, she can handle that on her own. She is definitely a little bit anxious about it, but she can do it. And that was something that you and I really pushed her of like, why don't you call the doctor? You know how to do it. But all of this to say is last week I was down there and Mom had taken Dad to the doctor and he needed a follow-up. And so she was telling me about this whole process and she was like, and then they called me and were asking me a whole bunch of questions and I just got overwhelmed and hung up. And I was like, it's okay, Mom. It happens. I have been in that situation. But it was the fact that she tried and did it, like, made me so proud of her. That's where I'm like, oh, I'm so happy to help. I'll call the doctors. Don't even worry about it. Sit down.
I feel like that's not even a language barrier thing. It's like, who hasn't been in that spot where you're just like, ah! Like, right now, I'm working on something. The like person that I'm helping is not comfortable with the phone calls. So I'm helping with like managing her inbox as part of this project that we're working on. But also I'm like taking phone calls. And it's so funny because, by the way, this is a woman who was like born here and speaks very fluent English. Like, it's not a language barrier issue, but she was sitting at her desk and I was like sitting on like the desk that I'm borrowing while I'm doing this project, and the phone rings. And this is what I see out of the corner of my eye. She turned her head around really quickly, like as if she like didn't recognize what the sound of the phone ringing was, and then just like stood up and she was like, the phone's ringing, can you help me? And I was like, yes, I can answer the phone. Yeah, sometimes you're just, the anxiety of it just like takes over and you're like, I can't deal with this, and like somebody else needs to step in. So I'm super proud of her. I didn't know that.
I know. And it actually didn't end up needing to call because she ended up resolving the issue on her own. So
Oh, good for her. I'm so
I
proud of her.
know it's been cool to see Mom's evolution. And we can talk about Dad in a little while, but just her coming here, taking English classes and really learning how to do all of the things that she needed to do, pay the bills and all of that stuff, and learn to navigate this whole new country in this whole new community. Mom was the one that she would drop me off at school in the early elementary grades, and she would hang out for morning work and stay with us and help my friends do their morning work.
Oh, you know what the other big thing was? Traveling. And that was like something that you had told me about.
Yeah, it's funny because I booked their flights for a vacation earlier this year, and they were a little bit anxious about it. And I had just flown, so they were asking me questions about immigration and what's it like, what's the customs like when you get back. And it makes sense because if you don't travel internationally super frequently, the processes do change. It looks different. And it looked really different during COVID, and now it looks different again. And like when you get into Logan, are you using a computer? Do you have to talk to a person? What does it actually look like? And so, I was answering their questions about like, this is what happened when I got back. It wasn't too bad, like, and then I dropped them off at the airport and I was like, okay, I'll go park and help you guys get checked in. And they're like, no, it's fine. And I'm like, are you sure? I'm happy to. And they're like, no, bye. And I was just like, I called you because I called you because like, they don't need me. What's going on?
What's happening here? I don't. You're like, oh, are our parents growing up?
I know. I'm like, this must be what parents feel like when they drop their kids off at college. You're like happy for them, but you're also kind of sad.
You're like, oh, I thought we had more time together. Yeah, that was like just like a really weird call. You were like telling me, you're like, yeah, and then they said that they were all set, and I was like, all set how? I just felt like I like, couldn't understand what you were very clearly explaining to me. I was just like, but I don't understand. Like, so you didn't go? You just let them go in?
I literally dropped them off out like at the terminal outside. Like they did not want to be escorted in.
They didn't want to be seen with you. I think that was They were like, no, we're good.
I think part of it too, now that we're talking about this, I think part of it too is feeling less scared to ask for help because I have pushed mom a lot of being like, hey, like at the doctors, if you don't understand something, get the translator. If you need help, ask this person. It's okay to ask for help. I think that is also a big turning point because they're asking other people for help and not just turning to us.
Another really good example of that is they're turning to their friends and colleagues. So we have a family friend who we're like super close to. She's like our second mom. She's amazing. I actually don't even know if she listens to this podcast. So if she does, she'll know exactly who we're talking about if she hears this. But the point is she works in the same system that our mom worked in, and mom had some questions about retirement. And retirement's like super confusing. If anyone has watched their parents, they're becoming retired. It's so confusing. There's like nothing easy about it. There were questions where I was like, I'm not sure what that is. Let me try to figure out who to call, or let me try to figure out what the answer is. And, mom was like, oh, let me just ask so-and-so because she's also going through the process. So like, she might know who to call. And I was like, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I think they're realizing that it's okay to ask for help. And that's a huge thing for a lot of people.
Yeah, because I think like culturally, like, right, it's a lot of like small town mentality and like they grew up in a very rural small town. It's a lot of like people caring about what other people think and how you're being perceived, and asking for help is like a sign of weakness. You don't know what you're doing. You're not perfect. The fact that they are able to ask for help, that's a huge cultural shift.
Yeah, or that you're just not smart enough. I think that's probably like a big thing coming from a time where you actually aren't that educated to begin with.
That's true.
We've talked a lot about mom, but dad deserves some praise.
Yes. What's your big growth for dad?
Dad apologizes, which
That
is
yes.
pretty amazing because I think there's still a lot of toxic masculinity in our culture. And I don't think that toxic masculinity allows for a lot of apologies from men. And the fact that I know he's apologized to me, and you've said he's apologized to you too, but dad's apology to me was essentially like, and I'm not going to go into the details because this is extremely special to me, the apology, but essentially it was like, I really held you back from a lot of things that you wanted to do, and I shouldn't have done that. There's no reason for that. And I'm really sorry for that. And I think that took a lot for him to do that, to say that to me.
That is so sweet. He's such a softie.
He's such a sweetie. But, I think that's probably the biggest thing. I think he's always had a willingness to learn new things, but that's expanded. Like he's always had a willingness to learn things that involved working with his hands. This is such a traditional Portuguese man thing. You could always call him and be like, hey, do you know how to put up sheetrock? No? You want to come over and figure it out together? Which, well, he did know how to put up sheetrock. It's a true story. At my old place, I was like, Dad, can you come help me put up like sheetrock in the basement? Can you teach me how to do this? And he did. But, I think later it became like going on the internet, learning how to buy things. So it was no longer him being like, can you buy something for your mom so that I can give it to her for her birthday? It's now like, this is what I want to get your mom. Here's a link. Here's my credit card. Can you just finish the payment?
Yep.
And that's huge.
I know. He will text me links to order stuff. It
Yeah, you've
removes the whole
mentioned that.
conversation.
I love that.
And it's nice because I don't feel like it's a thing where if I have to like stop by and then I get tasks, sometimes I stop by on my lunch break and then they give me tasks and I'm like, it's like going over my head because I'm stopping by on my lunch break and I've been staring at my computer for 4 hours. So then I'm like, wait, I came here to like hang out and unwind, not to do shit for you. Getting those links and just like being like, oh, I can order this when I have a spare minute. It really works better for me. And I really appreciate like their flexibility in how it gets done.
Yeah, I agree, and that's pretty cool. And I am really impressed that you were able to show dad how to do that because I've been trying for years and it was just
It's
not.
funny because like he'll be like, oh, well, you're teaching me and I forget. And I'm like, and then I'll teach you again. uh, and then finally it sticks eventually.
Dad's emotionally grown quite a bit over the years. I think that's the biggest thing I want to acknowledge about dad. Um, but I also want to say you and I have 8 years between us, and between me and you, there was also a lot of growth because we're talking about sort of like a long-term growth. What we've talked about so far is like decades worth of growth. But there was also like mini periods of growth. So there was also growth between us in different phases of childhood. Going back to dad's apology, one big thing was I wasn't allowed to play sports. I was only allowed to get a job. I wasn't even allowed to spend that money. I had to like put it in the bank because we had this really like this poverty and scarcity mentality, which did make sense when I was a kid. I wasn't allowed to do sports. I could only get a job. So like my life really was go to school, get out of school, go to work, come home, homework, bed, go to school. And by the time I was like 15-ish, I was working full-time hours between two jobs. I was working full-time hours. And that's just not something you experienced at all. Like you did have a job, but it was like for fun money. And you
Yeah,
and you were allowed to play sports.
I was. And I wonder too if part of that shift was that mom was working in the school that I went to. And that's why I was able to play middle school sports because I think she was so there. So, like, I think it probably didn't feel crazy.
I think part of it was that, and part of it was that I went to bat for you about that. I was like, it's just sports. Like, it's just middle school basketball. Though I do remember having this like a conversation where I was just kind of like, I don't understand what you think is going to happen.
Nothing. I was too short to be successful in basketball.
Definitely. Definitely. It's just not like our thing, and that's okay. But
But
it
I'm
was
glad I tried
good
it.
because it did open up the door for you to have other activities. There's so many things that I wish I had done in high school. And even now, like as an adult, I'm like, oh boy, like I wish I had gotten the opportunity to whatever. Um, and that I really feel like I missed out. But also when I think back at that time, I'm really glad that they started to soften up about that by the time that you came around to middle school and high school.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it just goes to show, like, how much they really care about us and, like, how much they have changed and learned and grown as people.
Yeah, for sure. It's easy to lean into the, well, I wasn't allowed to da 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 da, and kind of forget that they were also people who were also evolving. Also, they were like super young. Like, don't
Yeah,
forget it.
that's what's crazy, right? When mom had you, she was 24,
23.
23.
Yeah, I kn- I know this exactly because I remember when I turned 23, I was like, you had a me at the age I currently am. And I was like barely sober most of the time. Like, but I just remember just being like, God, why would you have a kid? But yeah, and they were like homeowners and married and had a kid, and there was no time to figure out your emotional like issues. There's no time to figure out your trauma and your relationship with poverty and all of that stuff when you're in survival mode. So is it easy to be like, I'm going to go to therapy and talk about how like I didn't get to play basketball. I mean, I would never would have wanted to play basketball, but like I didn't get to blah blah blah. Yeah, it's easy to do that. And yeah, I do still feel like I missed out, but it's not a black and white thing. There's a lot of grace to give them because they were young adults for a lot of, especially my childhood, and they were also figuring it out. And the reason I can give them a lot of grace is because they did figure it out and they did learn and evolve with what they've learned.
I know. There was a moment a few months ago, maybe, where your daughter was like playing with the bouncy ball and I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast already, but she was like playing with the bouncy ball and it like hit the stove and made a loud noise and her face was like instant panic. And my internal was like, oh my God, we're in trouble. But literally everybody in the room was just like, oh no, it was an accident. Accidents happen. And like started laughing and she totally calmed down. And I was literally in my brain like, that would have never happened. As a kid, I would have been in so much trouble.
Did I ever tell you that, like, as an adult, I broke one of Mom's fancy vases?
How dare you?
And it was on a literal pedestal. And I knocked into it. It was like in my 30s, and I knocked into it by accident. I think I had a bag. Like, I had a backpack or like a bag or something, and I knocked into it, and it tipped over, and it fell, and I was like, I'm going to be in so much trouble. Like, I had the urge to just leave. Just leave.
It's so funny. Every
And
time.
then I was, and Mom like heard it, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Do you want me to replace it? Like, this thing's like my age. I don't know if I can find it. And she was like, it's not that big of a deal. Let me just go get a broom. And I texted our cousin that we grew up with. And I was like, dude, I just broke the vase that's in the hallway. And he was like, are you in trouble? And I was like, I don't know. She went to go get a broom. And he was like, oh my God, you're in trouble. And I was like, just sheer panic. Like, it was, my stomach hurt. I was like, am I gonna poop? Am I gonna throw up? Like, instant panic. And it was fine. It was totally fine.
It's so funny. All of those moments where, like, as an adult, I felt like I'm going to be in trouble. Like, Mom has, like, 100% of the time surprised me in being so chill.
How about the other day? Dad texted me, are you up? I need to talk to you. Call me.
What did he need? Because that seems like it feels serious.
And I was like, it took me 40 minutes to work up the courage to call him.
You're like, oh my God, Mom's in the hospital. Somebody's dying.
No, I was like, what did I do? Listeners, I am 41 years old. I am married. I have 2 children. I was like, what did I do to make my dad upset? I was so scared. I was like, did I say something I shouldn't have said? Did I break something? Did I I don't know, stay out late? Like, I have no idea. What did I do? And I even went so far as to be like, maybe I should have my daughter call to soften him up before I take the phone. But finally, I was just like, be brave, just call. And I called and I was like, hey, Dad, what's going on? And he's like, can you help me with something? I was like, yeah, I can help you. And he's like, when you have time, can you do this thing for me? And I was like, yeah, I can help with that. And I was like, this guy.
You know, I'm starting to think that he has fun doing this because he did the same thing the weekend after I threw a party downstairs when they were gone. And when
they didn't know about it. It wasn't like a secret. They knew you were having a party.
They knew I was having a party and they were like, please use our apartment. It's much bigger than your place. It's going to be too cold outside. Please, go inside. I had some people. It was, I had some people over, and then when they get back, 2 days later, I get a similar text message, hey, are you up? Can you call me? He was like, can you come down here? I don't even remember what it was that he wanted, but I was like, what did I do? I'm like, did I accidentally leave something downstairs that I shouldn't have left downstairs?
Right. You were like, did somebody break something? Oh
I
my,
know. And then it was like, no, he needed something. And then they were like, did you even have people down here? It's so clean. I'm like, yes, I actually did, but I cleaned up because it's your house.
yeah, because I'm a responsible adult, despite the fact that I just spent the last half hour in deep fear. And the thing is, they've done nothing to elicit our response like that. That's just the way that, I think that's just the way that children are built, like with their parents. Now that you say it, it's like, maybe he is doing it on purpose and he's just like,
I think
this is
he's
just
trolling us a little.
maybe. But the thing is, like, it's so his style to be trolling us.
Oh, yeah, he probably thinks it's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really funny.
Yeah,
All of
he's
our
a
cousins
prankster.
do that. Yeah, he is a prankster. And it's just hilarious. And I do love that that hasn't changed about him.
I
But
think that's why, like, he's so popular amongst our cousins. Like, he's everybody's favorite uncle.
he is. And it's funny, him and certain siblings have that, like, they're constantly pranking each other thing. And it's so funny to, like, see it. And they're like such long-term things. It'll be like, he'll steal something from like his sister's house in like March and then like gift wrap it for her for Christmas.
And they'll, like, not have realized that it's been gone for 8 months.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like, who, who thinks of that? And it's just really funny. And I'm so glad that he still does that. I'm glad that hasn't changed about him, that as he gets older, it's just, he actually, when I left the kids there this morning and he's starting to get into it with my kids. Um, I guess yesterday when my kids were there, my daughter was doing a thing where she was hiding his hat. And then today she wore a tiara there because because she was a princess, obviously. And, I guess he was hiding her tiara to like mess
Aw,
with her. And she thought it was hilarious.
of course.
He also like tells her he doesn't like the color pink. And so every time she goes there, she puts on as much pink clothing as she possibly can wear.
And she probably thinks I could see her, like, being really hilarious and being like, Grandpa, even my underwear are pink. Like,
Yeah, and literally, like, she will say it like the night before. We always try to like get our outfits together the night before, and she is like, "No, I need the pink socks because Grandpa doesn't like pink." And then she'll start laughing and she'll go, "He's so silly." And it's just their current little practical joke on each other is she wears a lot of pink and then he goes, I don't like pink. And then like they kind of just have a good laugh about it. But that's his little like prankster vibe. It's just beginning to evolve with his granddaughter. And I'm so happy that that's the way it's evolving.
I love that. Like, those, when I think back at our grandparents, like, that was some of my favorite memories, is like being silly with grandpa and grandma, even though I know they weren't silly with our parents, but it was nice to be silly with them. With that, do you have any final thoughts on our parental glow up?
No.
No, let's end it with our question. Leslie, what makes you unapologetically you?
I'm so ready to answer this because I'm the one who said we should add this to the end of our episodes. So I mentally prepared background information before I answer this question. At the beginning of this year, I joined this women on weights class at my local YMCA. And the point of the class is to like get women comfortable with free weights. When you go to the gym, you're not just like, I'm going to run on the elliptical, but you're like, I know what to do with a dumbbell. So it was like a 6-week class. It showed us all these exercises. I made a friend there, and essentially me and her were like, should we just start doing this together? So we've been going almost every week for the greater part of this year. And so we are two fat women of a certain age fucking killing it at the gym. So one shout out to my gym buddy Abby, who definitely listens to this podcast because Sometimes the thing that gets me going at the gym is rage. And one time she was like, "Are you raging because of ice?" And I was like, actually, we recorded that episode a few weeks ago, so not anymore. But I was like, but I can rage over ice again. And she was like, I was just listening to it on the way here, so I think she got to rage about ice. But she's like a lot nicer than I am, so I don't think she rages.
Fair enough.
So the thing that makes me unapologetically me is that I am a fat woman of a certain age going into beast mode at the gym with all the like hunky dudes who
I love that.
you would expect to see on the weight side of a gym.
You're very good at making friends.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm very outgoing.
Yes, I know. Who are you?
I know, but I'm like also an introvert. So after a day of being outgoing, I've had days where I'm like, I'm just gonna go sit in the bathroom. I have like a little nightlight that has like a scent. So I've literally sat in the dark with just that little nightlight on and it smells really nice. And
Aw.
I just sit there and I'm like, oh, we need to be alone. We need to recharge. What makes you unapologetically you this week?
This week, I feel like my worlds are colliding a little bit. I've been working on my book on education, and I have started to tell some of the people in my business world about the book. And it feels a little bit weird because I feel like I push down the education part of me so much and I forget that I spent like a decade and I actually know a lot. And so all of this stuff is coming up where I'm like, who am I? I'm a teacher and a business owner. And now they're like mushing together. And then also being a citizen and using this book as a way to spark up conversations and improve the education system. So I am feeling like what makes me unapologetically me is all of these different things that make up who I am and what I do.
I will say though, as a part of your business, you've always maintained your teacherness.
It's true. It's one of those things where you can take the teacher out of the classroom, you can't take the classroom out of the teacher. And it's really true because it really informs my philosophy of how I do business and how I work with other people. So
Yeah, I mean, as a client of yours, I've learned a ton.
that's the goal.
I know. I'm like, when I'm writing my copy, I'm like, perhaps.
All
And
right.
now, if you want to learn about that, you should check out stacybraga.com.
It's true. I am here to do it for you and to teach you. Um, anyways, with all of this being said, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Unapologetically First Gen. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe, tell your friends, and join the email list. So you can get new episodes in your inbox. If you want to join the Cool Kids Club, get a mug and tag us on social media so we know you got a mug and we'll reshare you. All right. Thank you. Until next time.